What is the difference between perfectly well and well enough in cinema? For me, perfection in the form and in the meaning are necessary for any good film. But I think that films classified as perfectly well differ in the message that they send, thoughts that they evoke, and lessons that they teach. When Akira Kurosawa made his Seven Samurai film, he wanted to try his hand at Jedi Geki, the genre that was popular in Japan at the time. But he wanted to make it both deep in meaning and fascinating in form. The plot of such film genre usually revolves around a man receiving an obligation to perform a dangerous deed, often in conflicts with other duties or obligations, sometimes for the sake of revenge and protection of the innocent. Akira Kurosawa's films influenced Western cinema.
And after the first one, the first one I saw was Seven Samurai, and after that I was completely hooked. I said, this is really good.
David Dasser, in his book The Samurai Films of Akira Kurosawa, writes, "We might note, simply in passing and to proclaim yet one more area of study, how much of Hidden Fortress forms the basis of Star Wars. It is well known that The Magnificent Seven is a direct remake of this film. The Invincible Six, Battle Beyond the Stars, The Seven Magnificent Gladiators, Seven Swords are the same. We also know the parody film, Galaxy Quest. Traces of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai can be found in films where outstanding people unite to achieve a good cause or protect the weak, and this plot became an archetype."
Goes under the name Sonar.
Welcome aboard, Sonar.
Excuse me, sir. This is an actual Navy submarine?
We know Ocean's 11 trilogy, Va-Bank, some Star Trek episodes, some Star Wars Clone Wars episodes. Only old men are going to battle. But if George Lucas was the follower of Akira Kurosawa, then does only Hidden Fortress intertext with Seven Samurai? Let us find some parallels between Star Wars Episodes 4 to 6 trilogy and Seven Samurai. Star Wars was released in 1977. This was the time when the space race began. The launch of the first satellite in 1957 and the first man in space in 1961 have sparked unprecedented increases in spending on education and pure research. The space science fiction films were avant-garde at that time, and this new genre was started by Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey. Setting. The setting of The Seven Samurai is 1586. Kikuchiyo was born in the year 2 of the Tensho era, 1574, and should be 13 at the time. The title opening of The Seven Samurai is a synopsis of all that follows. The Sengoku period was a time of civil wars. It was a lawless era, and the farmers of the country were at the mercy of bands of brigands. Around the time of the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre in France in the 16th century, Japan was in the throes of civil wars, and the farmers everywhere were being crushed under the iron heels of cruel bandits. What about the Star Wars? A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. It is a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. During the battle, rebel spies managed to steal secret plans to the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station with enough power to destroy an entire planet. Both stories develop around two MacGuffins. Secret plans are the subjects of survival for the rebels, while harvest is the subject of survival for the farmers. Later we would find out that the Emperor let the plans be stolen for a purpose, to demonstrate a weak point in the defense, to have the enemy direct its attacks there, just like Kanbei taught his followers. Characters. The Seven Samurai are written out in great details, but the bandits are more of a vague, almost incalculable force. The same can be said about the Star Wars. Lucas took the theme of mentoring from the Seven Samurai, as well as the habits of Master Yoda and even C-3PO's phrase, "Looks like we were made to suffer. That is our lot." Just like Kikuchiyo, C-3PO followed his companion. He brings the robots and the plans to the humans. He translates from different languages and allows to assemble a team. He is a little selfish. Similar to Kikuchiyo, sometimes he looks funny because he is very emotional. And this is not typical for both the samurai and the robots. In a sense, Kikuchiyo also acts as a translator between the samurai and the farmers. Obi-Wan Kenobi is that Ronin who gathers the whole team. His name sounds like Kanbei. By changing his name to Ben, the Ronin tries to recreate himself. In Japanese film frame, he fails to forge a new society. The Ronin hero never manages to recreate or reconstitute himself, and so he becomes a necessarily tragic figure. Leia, ready to sacrifice her life, takes the plans from Alderaan, just as Akira Kurosawa's mother took a burning cauldron from the house, and then Kurosawa's heroine rescues a child from a burning mill. Visuals. The most visual intertext between the Seven Samurai and the Star Wars are the clothes, helmets, and swords. The helmet of Darth Vader acquired the features of the German Stahlhelm, reminiscent of both Imperial Japan helmets and the Nazi Germany at the same time. For the first time in the works of Kurosawa, he opposes the traditional samurai edged weapons to firearms, which are perceived as incompatible with military honor. All the dead samurais are killed with guns. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight, not as clumsy or random as a blaster, an elegant weapon for a more civilized age. Defeating the enemy on the sly without entering into duel with him looks so mean. The Death Star in Star Wars and guns in the Seven Samurai can also allude to the nuclear bomb. The scene from the Seven Samurai where the enemies appear from behind the mountain became both the intertext and a cliché used in many subsequent films. The same is the passage of the leader through the ranks of his soldiers. What themes intertwine in both of these films? Both films touch upon the topics of good and evil, chivalry and nobility from birth, orphans' destiny, and mentorship. The final scene in the Star Wars Episode 4 is an award ceremony, while the final scene of the Seven Samurai film unites samurai with farmers and forges a new society with mutual respect towards each other. Star Wars Episode 6 intertexts even more in that. We see the Jedis that passed away and the whole world celebrates the victory. But coming back to the question, how do the films made perfectly well differ from those that are made well enough? I would say that the humanistic message is the most important thing. Star Wars just states that freedom will overcome the dictatorship, good will conquer evil, and sets the humanistic religion of Jediism. But it is a little bit too obvious and simple. We see how the good conquered evil in the Kurosawa's film just before the last words that show the price of this victory. This price is not accentuated in the Star Wars. For example, the death of members of the Luke's party just occurs without any deep emotional reaction to them. So George Lucas made a good film. It was made for profit and to be easily understood and loved by the young audiences. It intertexts with Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, but not on such a deep level. Because the Seven Samurai have a multi-layer humanistic message at the forefront. The message that every life matters and the senseless fighting must be stopped. The young spectator of the Star Wars might join the battle for good just for fun after watching the film, because the good will conquer evil, but the spectator of Kurosawa will do everything to prevent death and violence.